Getting into volume 4 of this light novel has really left me quite fascinated in a lot more of the world building that goes into not just the dungeon itself, but outside of the dungeon, when we get to learn a lot more about this particular blacksmith that has been making Belle's armor. And some of also the backstory that goes into outside of the dungeon itself when it comes to the history of different kingdoms and empires out there. We really do get to learn a lot more about, of course, this particular blacksmith's family line and the bloodline that he possesses, and of course the ability to make magic swords, and how magic swords are able to turn the tides of war or particular battles, and just why he does not want to make, of course, magic swords, and just how it affects him mentally with how people treat him differently, all because he is able to make magic swords. And the fact that Belle treats him like an ordinary person, is just happy that he's able to get something to help everyone as a whole. I really love the way Belle is, and I've mentioned this in previous volumes, just how heartwarming and caring he is. As much as that can be seen as a little bit cliche, because of course, perfect protagonist, but I do see that he is just trying to do what's right, and even though he gets beaten down a little bit with mistrust and all the rest, he still tries to be the better person. It is also interesting just some of the new stuff that he gains in this particular volume. One of the things I will note that is missing out of the actual anime itself is the fact that Belle gets an ability called luck, and it's kind of like a passive thing. Belle gets a new skill in the anime, but it doesn't go over the luck thing that he gets. And there's sort of this little mini section where Belle goes to the office, he discusses about these choices that he's able to make, and he ends up deciding to pick luck. That is something that is in the light novels that isn't in the anime. Now, I don't know if that's going to play a larger part in the later on volumes. Maybe it will, but they could possibly explain that later on. That is something that I'm very interested to see, because I do want to know, because this is something quite key to the anime and of course the light novel, is there is a lot more missing. Each volume so far has shown that there is more and more and more stuff missing, and there is an entire 80 pages missing at the end of this particular volume, which goes over, of course, Belle going out and doing his first dungeon run, and then of course some more dungeon runs after that where he's accumulating some money and he's storing that money away, and Hestia gets quite upset, thinking that he's going to gallivant off with, of course, someone else, and she gets very insecure about it. Though, of course, she ends up finding out that Belle went out and saved some money so that he could buy Hestia a nice little gift. And I think that was such a heartwarming and absolutely adorable thing. And it just kind of shows just how cute Belle can be, but also how crazy Hestia can be when it comes to her being jealous and a little bit overthinking some of those situations. She is definitely very protective of Belle, which is understandable. You know, she's now finally got this sort of family that she's always wanted, and she doesn't want to lose it so quickly after that she's acquired it. So I can definitely understand where Hestia comes from, but she definitely overthinks some situations, and it does lead into some cute and adorable moments, and of course comical moments, because Hestia just really has a way of words and a way of acting. She really doesn't sometimes think things through, and Belle is quite stubborn as well. The fact that Hestia tries to drill this out of him, and he ends up being so stubborn and not telling her, you gotta give it to the man. He really wanted to make this gift special, of course, to his goddess, and I just love that heartwarming nature about him. As much as, yes, he can be dorky and a little bit silly, but sometimes there is just those cute moments where you want to see someone bring the best out of the world and bring the best out of people around them. And Belle definitely does that, and I don't think we need to see Belle in a very negative light, because there is definitely a lot of negative things surrounding him, especially when it comes to Faya. And it really shows in this volume just how manipulative and how vindictive she can be. And again, I love a good villain. I kind of love a good evil entity. And this is something, again, that is also missing from the anime, is of course the naming process. As much as we do get to see some of that in the anime, where Hestia goes to the ceremony and she does a little bit of talk with another god, and then that's pretty much the end of it. In the light novels, we get to see the entire process and just how crazy and how evil these gods are and goddess when it comes to the naming process. They are the greatest trolls of all trolls. They will come up with the most silliest names just to get at each other. And I just think it's kind of funny, because it's just a bit of karma to themselves, because they go out of their way to try and come up with the dumbest names for others, and then it kind of backfires on themselves when their familiars end up leveling up, and then they end up getting silly names. And they also can get name changes every level. So of course there is that opportunity that they could get rid of a silly name, or they could just add even more weirder stuff to their names. And it's kind of funny because the mortals below them think these names are so powerful and full of wisdom and knowledge and just so amazing. From a reader's perspective, and of course from the gods and the goddess perspective, they're so silly and stupid that it makes no sense. But I think at the end of the day, Bell did get a decent name. Little Rookie is probably the best name that he could have gotten compared to some of the other weird names out there. But I think the most fascinating part about it was when Loki tried to confront Hestia about the growth spurt. That was something that I think really should have been in the anime, because it really shows that Loki is cluing on to some things, that there is something a little bit amiss here with how Bell is able to just gain so much power so quickly to a point that it just is unfathomable. But what is more fun is the fact that Freya is the one that defends the situation and gets Loki off of course, Hestia's back about the situation. But that isn't where it ends either. Freya ends up defending, of course, Bell and trying to stop people from wondering how he's getting so much power, and kind of enforces that, you know, people shouldn't inquire, we wouldn't do the same to others, and there is those rules in place to make sure that you can't stick your nose into other people's affairs, that you shouldn't be, even though yes, some of them would like to know how, of course, Bell has gained all this power. But the fact that also Hestia is very clueless to what's going on, and Loki tries to pull Hestia aside and say, hey, can't you see that Freya is playing a big role in this and is very curious about your Bell? And Hestia is very clueless to this, but it shows that just Freya has a lot of influence, not just amongst the other gods and goddess, but also in Bell's life, and of course his progression as he's growing and as he's gaining power and levels. It is quite a big influence that she possesses that Hestia cannot see. So I'm interested to see when she finally works it out. Of course, I assume she does, but when is going to be the most fascinating part. Again, no spoilers, please. But overall, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts about this volume? This is the part that I'm very fascinated by, is what are your thoughts about the differences between the anime and of course the light novels? Because there isn't any necessary difference between the story itself. Everything that has been taken from the light novel into the anime has been kept true, but there is a lot of stuff missing. There are characters in the light novel that is not even in the anime itself. Complete major points to certain characters and attachments to certain characters have been completely removed. And I'm just fascinated to know what people's opinions about this is, because I have read some people aren't happy about that, but some people don't really care. For me, as long as the story is interesting in the anime sense, I'm not too bothered by it. It does encourage, of course, anime watchers to read the light novels, and I do highly recommend reading the light novels if you want the full context and the scale of everything that is going on in this world. I do recommend that. But overall, I'd love to know your thoughts either way, positive or negative. And if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I'll see you, beautiful nerds, in the next video.